Welcome back, Mindsetters. Just in case you've just joined us, we are doing life sciences. Today, we are focusing on the ecology and the
Ecosystems.
Please say that word for me, the pyramid one.
Ecological
Ecological
pyramids.
pyramids. That's it. That's what we're focusing on today. So I hope you guys have come through from far and wide to join us today. I know that we have mindsetters from all over Africa. So if you are from all over Africa, welcome. Welcome to Mindsets. And as always, we are here to take any one of your questions that you may have. I know that you guys have done this in grade 8 and 9, but it's so nice that it gets deeper now that you're in grade 10 and you know so much more so that you can base your knowledge on every single thing that happens in life sciences. Over to you again.
Thanks, Katleko. Guys, what's interesting is that we do the basics, but remember that in an assessment, in an exam, your teachers are going to assess you based on a situation. They're going to give you a case study, and then you need to apply these basic concepts. So you definitely will need to know your basic concepts, and that's what we're trying to do today. And yes, remember that ecosystems, environment, ecology can be a tongue twister at times. So let's give Insako a little break, Katleko a little break. Let's go on to pyramids of biomass. Right, so when we talk of biomass, we refer to the total mass of living organisms per unit area in a particular environment. So biomass will refer to the total amount of energy per unit area in a living organism. So what will a biomass pyramid illustrate to us? What will it show us? Okay, firstly, it'll show us the mass of organisms at each trophic level, and we'd expect that as we have lots of plants, the mass of the plants would be the most. We know that we spoke of the baobab tree, and a baobab tree would be a huge tree. And Katleko is actually putting up a picture of a baobab that you guys can have a look at if you haven't seen one. These are huge trees, and hence the amount of biomass in that tree would be huge. Okay. Also, a pyramid of biomass will also show you how we will see at the base that the base would be the greatest in terms of it has the most amount of energy in it. The biomass of an organism progressively decreases, again, as we'd seen in the other food chains, as we move higher up the food chains. We saw that in the energy pyramid, we saw that in the food pyramid, that as we go up the trophic levels, the number of organisms decrease. Here we're looking at the biomass pyramid, and we'd see that as we go up the biomass pyramid, the amount of biomass gradually decreases. And this is definitely due to the amount of energy being available at each trophic level, and lots of it is lost to the environment as heat as well as through excretion. Okay. Let's look at a pyramid of biomass. Here we can see we've got grass at the first trophic level, and that has 10,000 grams per meter squared. If we look at a water hog, the biomass of a water hog is 100 grams per meter squared. If we look at a lion, 10 grams per meter squared, and the lion will have parasites on them, and these are fleas that feed off the lion, and this would have a biomass of 1 gram per meter squared. And what you'd notice here is that as we go up onto the different trophic levels, the amount of energy or the biomass gradually, I wouldn't say gradually, I'll say significantly decreases. And you can see that decrease from 10,000 grams per meter squared to 100 grams in the second trophic level to 10 grams in the third trophic level to finally 1 gram in the fourth trophic level. Okay, let's look at a few more biomass pyramids. Okay, let me just go back. Right, so we looked at that. The pyramid of energy, the third type of pyramid that we need to look at this afternoon. Okay, so these pyramids show us how much energy is available to organisms at a particular in a particular environment over a given period of time. So again, an energy pyramid will show you the amount of energy available to each trophic level in an ecosystem at any given period of time. We looked at the lengths of each bar, and we said that the length of a bar will show you the amount of energy available per unit area in each trophic level. Let's look at this example. Here we see again, we've got the first trophic level, the second trophic level made up of your primary consumers, your third trophic level, and your fourth trophic level made up of your tertiary consumers. At the producers form the base of the pyramid, and we see that they have 1,000 kilojoules of energy available to them, and this is obviously the primary producers, which would be plants. These in turn supply energy to your primary consumers, and the amount of energy available in the second trophic level is 100 kilojoules, and we can see that that has decreased already. And as we move up to the secondary trophic level, the third trophic level, the secondary consumers, we see that there's only 10 kilojoules of energy available to the secondary consumers or the carnivores, and as we move up, that further decreases to 5 kilojoules. What is interesting to note is that the amount of energy will constantly decrease, and if you guys look carefully, there's some pattern that I'm going to discuss soon. In terms of, if you look at the pattern in terms of the way the energy is decreased, we would see that, and I hope you guys are picking this up. I'm going to look at that in the next slide. Okay, let's go back to pyramids of energy. Right. Let's move to the next slide, guys. Right. So we saw that at each trophic level, about 90% of the energy is lost. And that's a huge amount of energy to lose for any organism. And why is that energy lost? Yes, we spoke about this. Lots of the energy is lost because the organism needs to maintain. If it's a warm-blooded animal, you need to maintain its body temperature. And most organisms spend lots of the energy in movement. Very little of that energy gets used to build up their body mass or their biomass, and hence the energy is lost during physiological processes. It's lost through excretion as well as through heat from their body surfaces. And we see that, and that's the reason why 90% of the energy is lost. Thus, the total energy passed from one trophic level to the next is only 1/10 of the energy received from the previous organism. That simply means that the next trophic level gets 1/10 of the energy available to them from the previous, which is very little, guys. And hence, as we go up the trophic level, these organisms, the second, the third, and the fourth, would need to eat more food to satisfy the requirements of their bodies. Therefore, we say that animals at the top of the food chain need a lot more food to get the energy need. And we said that if you look at a lion, it's a huge animal, and hence it would need to feed, and it need to feed regularly to sustain its energy requirements, because lots of the energies, it's going to run, it's going to feed, it's going to hunt. Lots of the energy that it gets from its food is utilized in building up body mass, in moving around, in maintaining its body temperature, and hence it would need to feed regularly to survive. As a result, it takes lots of producers to support a few consumers. If we look at this food chain here, if we look at this ecological pyramid here, and this is obviously an energy pyramid. If we look at this, we see that these are the producers, again, the first trophic level, and 100% of the energy that they have trapped into their body is available to the next trophic level. Of the 100%, only 10% of that energy is passed on to the primary consumers. So we can see that gradual decrease in the amount of energy, and then your secondary consumers would only get 1% of that energy, and finally your tertiary consumers only receive 0.1%, which is 1/10 of the energy from the previous trophic level. So lots of energy being lost as we go through from one trophic level to the next. Here's another example. So the total energy that is passed from one trophic level to the next will always decrease by 1/10 that it receives from the previous organism. Therefore, animals found at the top will need a lot more energy to get the energy needs. Let's look at this diagram very quickly. And here you can see again, produces, here we refer to the units, kilocalories. I'm going to do that, kilocalories. I'm going to explain to you in a while what a calorie is and what a joule is. Here we see the producers producing 1,000 kilocalories, and of that, if we divide this by 10, that's the amount of energy then available to the secondary or the primary consumers at the second trophic level, which is 100 kilocalories. Again, divide that by 10 kilocalories would be available to these rodents, which are the secondary consumers, and they will in turn provide only 1/10 of the energy available to them to the tertiary consumer. So that would mean that the owl in this in this food chain only receives 1 kilocalorie of the energy from the secondary consumers. Okay. So how is food? Right. So I spoke about earlier on. I spoke about a kilojoule, and now I mentioned the calorie. And I'm sure you guys, when you've eaten a snack bar or maybe a packet of chips, and you would have seen at the back the nutritional information that refers to calories and joules. Let me explain to you what a calorie is and what a joule is. And it's important to know this because that would indicate to you the amount of energy that is available in a portion of food. So let's look at what a calorie is. If we were to define a calorie is the amount of heat that is required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. So simply it means that if we had 1 gram of water and we produced heat and the temperature of the water increased by 1 gram, the amount of energy that was required to change the temperature of the water by 1 degree would be 1 calorie. Now, I've done this experiment in school with some of my learners. I've tried to estimate the amount of energy available in a peanut and compare that to the amount of energy available in an almond or another nut. What we did was we set up a test tube with 10 mLs of water. I'm going to show that to you on the board here. We set up a test tube with 10 mLs of water in there. So we added in 10 mLs of water. I placed in a thermometer over that, and that was placed over a tripod stand. Okay, and then on a Bunsen burner, I used a peanut and I lit the peanut, and that obviously burnt and produced energy. I then placed the peanut under the test tube and I heat as the peanut burnt. It heated the temperature of the water, and the initial temperature of the water was measured, and after a period of time when that peanut burnt off, we measured the temperature after the difference in temperature, and we recorded that. So we measured the initial temperature and we measured the final temperature, and thus we could work out the amount of energy that was produced by the peanut. And that's a very simple way of doing that in a practical. We're not doing that today, but I just explained to you that. Let's look at what a calorie measures in terms of joules. A calorie would measure 4,183 joules. So what is a joule? Okay, let's look at that. Okay, so this is a quantity that's used in physics, and we use this so a joule is equal to work done by a force of 1 Newton over a distance of 1 meter. So basically, it is a standard international unit to represent energy, and hence we represent energy, we refer to amounts of energy using the unit joules, and if you wanted to know, it was the amount of work done by a force of 1 Newton over a distance of 1 meter. And that essentially, to do that work, you would need energy, and that energy is measured in joules. Okay, right. We often come up with some unusual pyramids, in the sense that the shape of these pyramids are not what we normally see, and this would be because of the type of organisms that we'd find. Now, here I've got an image of, and you guys have probably not seen this, but these are images of aphids, and if you Aphids are extremely they're microscopic, so you need a magnifying glass to have a look at them. They're extremely small, and these aphids are a delicacy for the ladybirds. So you find that ladybirds feed off these, and if you remember how small these ladybirds look, they're cute little red ones with little, okay, and they feed off these aphids, which are extremely small, and aphids in turn are a sought after food by the robins, and these are larger birds. So on a rose bush, we've got one rose bush that supports 100. We've got one rose bush, and that's a rose bush, and on it we've got 2,000 aphids, and on as well as we've got 100. Let me just erase that for you guys. Okay, we've got 100 ladybirds, and we've got one, what was that? And that was, let's look at a robin. We've got one robin. If we look at this pyramid, it has an unusual shape, only because, similar to the baobab tree, we're calling this plant, the rose plant, one organism, and here we refer to the aphids as individual organisms, and hence we see that these organisms, the numbers would gradually change, and the shape of the pyramid would be very different from the conventional pyramids that we see. Let's look at a few other examples of some unusual pyramids. Here we see two unusual pyramids again. Here we're talking of 10,000 blades of grass, 100 zebra, a single line, and on that line we've got much smaller fleas, but the fleas are much smaller, and hence the line many of them will be found on a line, and these are parasites, and 500. So if we refer to the amount of the numbers at different trophic levels, we'll see that these numbers gradually decrease, but increase here because the size of the organisms have decreased. Here we looked at that example already. We looked at the number of rose trees, the 2,000 aphids, 100 ladybirds, and one bird. Okay.
Are you ready for a break again?
Sure, that's been quick. We're going to go for a break, and we're going to come back with some careers, possible careers in environmental science.
Okay, awesome. So that's just to say that you guys must not move off your seats, because it does get more interesting, just like everything else here at Mindset. See you after the break.